Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la ya ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la
Ruchim Habaim, welcome. My name is Bill Liss-Levinson, and I have the honor of serving as the chair of the Board of Trustees of the Academy for Jewish Religion. It is remarkable to reflect that this is our second year in which our smicha ceremony is occurring via Zoom due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As a nation, we have grappled not only with illness and death, but also with threats to our democracy, with racism and racial inequities, anti-Semitism, and various other expressions of hate, and with an awareness of the ways in which we as a nation fall short of our aspirational ideals. Yet, there is progress and hope. And for AJR, it has been a remarkable year of growth and successes, as you will hear shortly, with the joyous celebration of our 65th anniversary just a few months ago. In less than 2 weeks, we will begin the fourth book of the Torah, Bamidbar, meaning in the desert or in the wilderness. The travels of the Jewish people are an apt metaphor for AJR as we look to the future. We are blessed with incredible senior executive and administrative leadership, enormously talented people with deep and broad commitment to the students, the school, and our faculty. You are all our Moses. Our board of trustees are like the Zikanim, the elders, providing advice and consent, governance and oversight. Our alumni, an active hovering presence who support us and reflect the best of who we are and what we have been able to accomplish over the years, are like the cloud of glory. Our faculty are exemplary and are in the best spirit of the best teachers of our people. Our students, you are all like Nachshon ben Aminadav on the edge of the Sea of Reeds during the Exodus. Like Nachshon, you have had the courage to take the plunge and will create a glorious pathway, not just for yourselves, but for the future of all the Jewish people. The AJR community well understands that we all exist within the presence of a transcendent God. We do not simply nor completely control the future, but we share responsibility for creating the future we wish to be a part of. Perhaps a new way to understand the famous statement in the Mishnah Sanhedrin, Kol Yisrael yesh lehem chelak le'olam haba. All of Israel has a part in the world to come. And finally, we look with optimism and boldness to the next 65 years and reflect upon our mission. The late Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson of blessed memory, said, "Why was the Torah given in the desert? To teach us that just as no individual can claim sole possession of the desert, so too no one can claim sole possession of the Torah." AJR's message of pluralism has been historic and consistent, one which I believe resonates now even more strongly within the American Jewish community. Kol hakavod to our rabbinic ordinees and to our graduates receiving your master's degrees. Your journeys throughout the past years, your fortitude and resilience to complete your studies during the pandemic have brought you to the edge of a new promised land. Now your work truly begins anew, and begins in expanded ways. Each of you can and will be a leader, a Miriam, a Moshe, and Aaron, bringing your unique talents, insights, and Torah to your Jewish communities and beyond. To all of you here today, please know that like the Jewish people, AJR continues to be on a glorious journey. Be a part of that journey. Follow us, support us, join our board of trustees, share in the excitement of sustaining and creating the best Jewish world for the present and for the future.
Thank you, Bill, for those important words. I echo all that Bill has said in terms of AJR and about expressing our gratitude to all the different parts of our community, each of which contributes to our success and growth. And let me say Mazal Tov to our ordinees and graduates and our honorees. We are so happy to have the privilege to be a part of the celebration with you. Bill spoke of this having been a wonderful year of growth for us at AJR, and he's right. AJR has been growing in leaps and bounds over the last few years, hitting an all-time high in our student numbers this year with 80 students this past spring term. And as always with AJR, these are not just any students. We have passionate, creative, intelligent, spiritually deep students who know how to study and serve with their heads, their hearts, and their souls. We are also thrilled to announce that AJR has been the recipient of 2 major grants in the past month that will enable us to engage in new and exciting programming that will serve our community and reach beyond us to serve the larger Jewish and interfaith world. First, we have been accepted into the American Association for the Advancement of Science, Science for Seminaries project through their Dialogue on Science, Ethics, and Religion program in partnership with the Association of Theological Schools. Yes, that is a real mouthful, but it's actually quite wonderful. We are the first non-Christian seminary to be accepted into this program. The grant will provide us with the resources to integrate science into our coursework and campus-wide events. In a time when science has been under attack in the United States, it feels especially important that our clergy achieve scientific literacy and know how to interpret data critically. We will be creating new courses together with scientific advisors that will provide basic literacy, but also an understanding of how, for example, geology or astronomy will help us to understand the imagery in the Bible. They will learn how knowledge of basic pharmacology will make them stronger pastors. We are confident that this new project will benefit our students, our community, and the communities that they serve. We hope that some alumni will join our new courses as well. The second grant is from Lilly Endowment Incorporated. It will enable us to establish dialogue with Christian seminaries to prepare all of us to better participate in interfaith work. By working with a variety of Christian seminaries, we will be better equipped to prepare materials to be used by Christian seminarians to help them understand the diversity and nuances of the North American Jewish community, to sensitize Christian seminarians to distinctly Jewish spiritual needs and language, and to build bridges among our seminaries through joint study of sacred text. We hope to be partnering with the Association of Theological Schools, our accrediting agency, on some of this work as well. Given the importance of interfaith work in the contemporary world, we are confident that this will have a strong impact on a variety of religious communities and look forward to building partnerships and relationships that will sustain all of us moving forward. Thank you to everyone who worked on these grant proposals for making this all possible. We are truly in a remarkable period of growth. Our student body is growing, our board is growing, new opportunities are opening for us as we are now an accredited institution. Yes, we had a wonderful 65th anniversary celebration this year. More importantly, however, as these highlights make clear, the next 65 years will be worthy of still greater celebration. Stay tuned.
It's a special day here in the city of Yonkers and a pleasure to join you all virtually. First and foremost, I would like to congratulate the amazing staff at the Academy for Jewish Religion for their hard work and sacrifice during this unprecedented time. Today would not have been possible without your contributions, so thank you for grooming the next generation of members in the Jewish community who will promote powerful, inclusive messages. You know, not everyone could handle the rigors of obtaining their master's degree and excelling during this new culture of remote learning. However, the 6 graduates have achieved the gold standard, graduating with a master's in Jewish studies, successfully beating the odds. Allow today to serve as a reminder that anything is possible, even during the most challenging of circumstances. Also, the 6 graduates, 3 of you will go on to practice your faith in your new official role as ordained rabbis. What a truly remarkable accomplishment. You should be very, very proud of yourselves. Yonkers thanks each of you, as our community is fortunate to have leaders like yourselves who are steeped in the tradition and creative in their approach to ritual and contemporary thought. Once again, congratulations to all. Your dedication is admirable, and I'm sure this experience has made you more resilient. I hope to see you all again soon.
It is a real privilege to recognize Rabbi Jeff Hoffman for his tremendous service over the years to AJR. Jeff began teaching at AJR over 25 years ago and has helped to shape literally decades of rabbis and cantors. Jeff's impact on AJR will be felt for years to come. He spearheaded our accreditation project, a daunting process that took over a decade. This involved a combination of creative thinking, serious organization, a lot of jumping through bureaucratic hoops, a lot of meetings, trips to Albany, networking, and just plain hard work. I will never forget sitting in a meeting in Albany as Jeff explained to a critical Department of Education official how accreditation is like giving hashgacha, kosher certification, in a restaurant. And he went on to explain the difference between a mashkiach tmidi, a full-time on-site kashrut supervisor, and a nichnas v'yotze, I don't think he used those words, a spot inspector of kashrut status. I am so confident that she had not had a conversation like that before. But this evinces the monumental effort and creativity that Jeff undertook and exemplifies his impact on AJR. However, when I think about it, I think that as the years go by, accreditation will become something normal at AJR. It will stop exciting us. In years to come, people will take it for granted, as they should, and they won't think about all that was done to make it happen. That will never be the case, however, for Jeff's students. They will always remember his love of Talmud and liturgy, his 4 questions, his silver tuna, his spiritual depth, his caring heart, and his deep investment in each one of them. Similarly, this will never be the case for Jeff's colleagues. We will always remember his warm presence, his critical thinking, his creative depth, his love of all things Jewish, and his generosity of spirit. Jeff, as your friends, students, and colleagues know, you are a great lover of the Grateful Dead. Brace yourself here. They too provide wisdom for this time. When you set out on this journey, you probably did not expect to spend so much time on administration and to actually enjoy it. But as you know, once in a while, you get shown the light in the strangest of places if you look at it right. And now, as you move on, we know you will hang it up and see what tomorrow brings. After all, what a strange, long trip it's been. Mazal tov.
Oh my God, thank you so much. That was just so beautiful. And I think I did use those terms, nichnas v'yotze in Albany. Anyway, for several decades now, I want to share my liturgy students have been assigned my 4 methodological questions that Aura referenced just now. They use them in analyzing individual prayers. And to give my students some measure of vengeance, I thought I'd assign myself the task of framing my very brief comments according to those 4 methodological questions. So question 1, the history. I am so fortunate that I've been teaching at the Academy for Jewish Religion since more or less 1986, when then AJR rabbinical student Les Scharnberg came into my synagogue office one day and asked for help in Talmud. We studied together for a semester, and he then recommended me to Rabbi Shohama Wiener, who was about to begin her first year as dean of the school. I've been teaching at AJR ever since, except for 2-3 years in the mid-1990s, when I took off time to write my doctoral dissertation. Question 2, location in the liturgy. I've taught at AJR in its locations at Congregation Anshe Chesed, at the Society for the Advancement of Judaism, both on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, the College of Mount St. Vincent in Riverdale, New York, AJR's current space on Wells Avenue in Yonkers, New York, and during this crazy past year, like millions of people around the world, in cyberspace. Question 3, title of the prayer, based on a literary analysis. While my years at AJR do not constitute a literary matter, they comprise real-life experience. Still, there is a literary connection that yields perhaps an appropriate title to this experience. A number of years ago, the AJR administration was revising its certificate of smicha, its certificate of ordination. And there was a new phrase we were inserting, netivot halev, which needed translation. Literally, it means something like pathways of the heart, but we were seeking a more elegant, if less literal, translation or equivalent in English. At the very moment when we were struggling with this phrase, in walked Rabbi David Engberg, who himself embodies Netivot Halev, to teach his class. And we immediately asked him how he might translate it. And his suggestion, the path of spiritual refinement, has been in each smicha certificate ever since. Keeping that in mind, I would suggest that the title for my time at AJR, which you can consider one long prayer, it continues to be this title, The Search for the Path of Spiritual Refinement. The conceit is that I've been a teacher at AJR for all these years. Closer to the truth is that I've actually been the student seeking to learn the path of spiritual refinement. Whatever progress I've made on this path is due to what I've gleaned from my colleagues, from Dr. Ora Horn-Prauser, and from all my colleagues on the administration, past and present, and of course, from the many, many students over the years who have put up with my 4 methodological questions, and who from their questions, their answers, and simply from the essence of who they are, have taught me and continue to teach me what the path of spiritual refinement in real life actually means. Finally, and most briefly, question 4. How does the modern worshiper, in this case me, integrate the answers to the previous 3 methodological questions and actually daven the prayer? Well, all of this adds up to one thing: a prayer of hodaya, a prayer of gratitude, pure gratitude. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Casper, and I'm the Dean of AJR's Cantorial School and Director of Student Life and Placement. My strong guess is that any one person can contribute in a truly significant way, and they might not even know it. It just might be some crazy circumstance like what happened to me, or a door opens that allows you to help by doing something that needs doing. Those aren't my words. They belong to Rabbi Daniel Price. Danny, just a kid from Peekskill, as he once described himself to me. Finishing high school as a trombone and keyboard player, he began an undergraduate degree in music, which he switched out of near the end of his college years to major in communication. Danny graduated and began a career in television as a director, which lasted 19 years. Taking a hard look at the future, he determined that ultimately he wanted to participate in the life of the Jewish community in some meaningful way. And his path led to the academy. Sometime during his AJR student years, he found that building his seminary's library, book by book by book, was his passion. The story is almost legend, carrying countless box loads, all of them acquired in a door-to-door kind of way, and piled in the back of Danny's car. They all made their way to school. It is without question, and with absolutely no hyperbole, that I can truthfully say Rabbi Danny Price is single-handedly responsible for making sure AJR developed a library, and not just for the idea of it, and not just for bringing in a couple of hundred books to start us off. Danny is personally responsible for starting it, stocking it with thousands upon thousands of volumes, cataloging each of them, and helping to put us in a position to celebrate our accreditation, as we did at last year's ordination. In Danny's own words, building AJR's library was the greatest single professional thing he ever did. It is for this achievement and for his ongoing service to the Academy that we are so proud to honor Rabbi Daniel Price with the Marbesh Shalom Award. Congratulations, Danny. Zal Tov.
Coming out of this pandemic, we're most likely going to be faced with obstacles that seem impossible to overcome. Now, the greatest gift my parents ever gave me was to never say that I couldn't be or do something in terms of what choices I may have as I go through life. And thus, I've always treated the words can't, won't, and no as my true adversaries, something that had to be beat and overcome. So my short teaching, or maybe it's even a sermon for today, is not as much scholarly. It is more about making the impossible possible. And I'm going to give you 13 principal points of how you can make a 10,000 volume library from 20 books and do it with no money. Now, perhaps there's an idea or a spark of creativity that you can use as you face your own obstacles. So here they go. 1, answer a call for someone who has a van to deliver a batch of books from a nearby storage facility to our new home in Riverdale in 2001. Number 2, after seeing these books and boxes sit there for a year, have the audacity to say to Aura, if you let me run with it, I'll build us a library. 3, tap into the knowledge of the late Judy Rivas, a friend and local librarian. She also gave us extra library shelving from the Norwalk Library when they closed one of their branches. 4, buy more shelving from Staples. Yes, Staples. Think Riverdale Beit Midrash. 5, subscribe to an online cloud-based library catalog system long before people were using cloud-based systems. 6, start collecting donations from rabbinical collections, including a large one from a famous rabbi. 7, use your family's company storage to also store books await processing. 8, send your family away over the winter break so you can study and catalog the first 1,000 books. 9, after seeing that the book collection is quickly collecting doubles and triples as fast as a young person's baseball card collection, sell some extra books to a book dealer. Reinvest that money into both the online subscription, books, and more shelves. 10, when the book dealer is no longer coming through, open up an Amazon store and sell extra books, keeping immaculate records of each transaction. 11, use the Amazon money to buy the semester's book list for the library, as well as other important and necessary volumes from big Judaic book sales. And 12, which might even be the key pivot point, when a wonderful philanthropic family hires you to home religious school their children at a very generous rate, tell them that they can direct that money directly to the Academy Library. And they did. And they donated far more money than I could have ever made teaching their children. And finally, 13, have a mutual friend of both this family and myself, Cantor Dorothy Goldberg, asked the family for funds to hire our first librarian for the first 5 years. Well, that's how it happened. And when I turned the library over to the school in 2012, I cataloged and shelved over 10,000 books. Now, how do I know? Well, I bought 10,000 library barcodes in my initial supply purchase, and I was already on a new batch of 10,000 when I stopped. But it is important to know, my rewards were much greater than anything the schools received. First of all, I had an amazing experience picking up books and spending time with the families of the various donors. It was in many ways parallel to Aaron Lansky's experience in rescuing old Yiddish books. If you read his book, Outwitting History, you'll see that donating books is much, much more than handing over a collection of writings. He talks about how the donors are giving up a piece of themselves, their family, and their history. And thus a book pickup becomes an intimate insight into a family, and the receiving of these books an act of holiness. Second, it gave the entire community, AJR community, great pleasure to watch our library grow day by day. And finally, I learned so much about the contents of Jewish books, their authors, and their place in history that I could have almost immediately become a reference librarian. So for all the money, sweat, and toil that I poured into it, I came away much richer for the experience. When Dorothy, then the board president, asked me a decade ago if I was willing to be honored, I said with a great lack of tact, honor me when I'm gone. But just like the gift of growth that AJR gave me by attending rabbinical school in my 40s, so did too 10 years of reflection give me the opportunity to change my mind. When I was doing the work, I was in the moment and not concerning myself with the enormity of the job. Now, in my 60s and semi-retired, I cannot believe what we were able to accomplish. So, just as accreditation and building a library seemed like an impossible dream 20 years ago, when I first stepped into AJR, it is now a reality. I very humbly tip my cap to Jeff, Aura, Matt, the entire administration and faculty, past and present, as well as the students who are the lifeblood of our school, and the volunteers on the board whose tremendous work made an impossible dream come true. So now it's your turn. Go out into your communities and instead of turning away from the impossible, embrace it and find creative ways like we did to make what we thought couldn't be a reality. Thank you so much for this wonderful honor. And remember, Im tirtzu in zoagada, which loosely translated means, if you will it, it will no longer be a fantasy and it just might become a reality. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming and attending.
Shalom. I'm Rabbi Jill Hammer, and I'm the Director of Spiritual Education at AJR. Every year, AJR celebrates its students for their leadership, service, and dedication to our community. So many of our students take the time, in addition to all they give to schoolwork, profession, and loved ones, to do Avodat HaKodesh, sacred work, to benefit all of us. We deeply appreciate their generosity of spirit, and this year, AJR honors Carl Sayers with a Community Service Award. So well deserved. ARC, the Association of Rabbis and Cantors, also grants students awards to celebrate their creativity and innovation. This year, the Rabbi Herschel J. Matt Creative Liturgy Award goes to Davy Rosen for his submission entitled Hallel Passover 2020. The Rabbi Hannah Timner Creative Liturgy Award goes to Lisa Rothstein Goldberg for her transition ritual for those recovering a lost Jewish identity. The AJR Student Association also grants awards to honor the remarkable dedication of students. This year, the Student Association Leadership Award goes to graduating student Mitchell Blank. We congratulate the award recipients and are so grateful for all of their powerful contributions to AJR and to Jewish life, and for all those who contribute their time, leadership, and creativity to our community. During the pandemic, the Academy community sustained our own very painful loss. We now remember our student, Dr. Yvette Catlin, of blessed memory.
It has been less than 6 months since Yvette Catlin of blessed memory passed away. It still feels unreal, not possible, beyond our ability to comprehend. For her family and the AJR community, her death was a crushing blow, a communal loss that shook us to the core. No matter who you were, old friend, new classmate, administrator, faculty member, Geshe student, matriculated student, master's candidate, we all came together and we all grieved together. Each of us felt the loss of a powerful presence. Each of us felt the loss of a keen and present intellect. Each of us felt the loss of a gifted musician, a truly gifted musician. Yvette was not only those things, she was also an aspiring kobo. We knew her as the cantor who brought home the soaring notes upon which her tefillah rest. We knew her as the rabbi who struggled to inhabit the words of the ancients. Our cantorial students have put together this video, which showcases one of Yvette's own compositions. We hope it merits the honor she brought to the Academy.
אהבת עולם, אהבת עולם,
בית ישראל,
בית ישראל,
עמך, אהבת עולם, בית ישראל,
תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים אותנו ללמדך.
על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו וקומנו נשיח בחוקיך.
ונשמח בדברי תורתך, על מצוותיך
Thank you so much for making that video. We remember Yvette, Zichrona Livracha. Her memory is a blessing. We are moving on now to the awarding of the MAs in Jewish Studies. It is an honor to have the opportunity to bestow the MA degree on our students. All candidates for ordination at AJR are required to earn their Master's in Jewish Studies as part of their ordination program. In addition, we are delighted to be bestowing degrees on those who have come to the Academy specifically to pursue a master's degree. The MA curriculum is a rigorous academic program with emphases on sacred text and the contemporary Jewish community. The MA program is an important part of AJR life. It exemplifies the academic rigor of the program. It puts the Academy in the Academy for Jewish Religion. It makes the point that Jewish studies is not just for clergy, but is a birthright for us all. It points to the fact that there is tremendous value in being a learned and thinking Jew. We are proud of each of our students who have studied, written an MA project, and are now ready to be awarded their degrees. I will be awarding these degrees together with Dr. Matthew Goldstone, Assistant Academic Dean, and Rabbi Jill Hammer, Director of Spiritual Education.
I am very pleased to present Stephen Mark Axon as a candidate for the degree of Master of Arts in Jewish Studies.
Stephen submitted a master's project entitled Insights Observed from a Comparison of the Jewish Laws of Competition and American Antitrust Law.
On behalf of AJR, we are pleased to bestow upon you the degree of Master of Arts in Jewish Studies. Mazal Tov.
I am very pleased to present Mitchell Blank as a candidate for the degree of Master of Arts in Jewish Studies.
Mitch submitted a master's project entitled The Chumash as a Guide to Develop and Maintain the Optimal Relationship Between God and Human Beings, a commentary on the book of Genesis, chapters 1 to 11.
On behalf of AJR, we are pleased to bestow upon you the degree of Master of Arts in Jewish Studies. Mazal Tov.
I am very pleased to present Asher Hillel Burstein as a candidate for the degree of Master of Arts in Jewish Studies.
Asher submitted a master's project entitled The Book of Job, Rabbinic Dilation of Scope and Narrative.
On behalf of AJR, we are pleased to bestow upon you the degree of Master of Arts in Jewish Studies. Mazal Tov.
I am very pleased to present Wendy Grodenchik as a candidate for the degree of Master of Arts in Jewish Studies.
Wendy submitted a master's project entitled Psalm Therapy, the Psychotherapeutic Use of Psalms.
On behalf of AJR, we are pleased to bestow upon you the degree of Master of Arts in Jewish Studies. Mazal Tov.
I am very pleased to present Jeremy Lipton as a candidate for the degree of Master of Arts in Jewish Studies.
Jeremy submitted a master's project entitled Pidyon Haben and Adoption, Affirmation of Jewish Identity and Community Through Ritual.
On behalf of AJR, we are pleased to bestow upon you the degree of Master of Arts in Jewish Studies. Mazal Tov.
I am very pleased to present Marjorie Wise as a candidate for the degree of Master of Arts in Jewish Studies.
Marge submitted a master's project entitled Synagogues in Crisis Mode, Models from the COVID-19 Pandemic.
On behalf of AJR, we are pleased to bestow upon you the degree of Master of Arts in Jewish Studies. Mazal Tov. And Mazal Tov to everyone.
Good afternoon and Mazal Tov. I'm Rabbi Rob Steinberg, interim rabbi in residence at AJR. How does someone become a leader and teacher of the Jewish people? From the very beginning of the project we know of as Rabbinic Judaism, our sages considered their leadership authority to be derived from the authority that had originally been granted by God to Moses, who passed it to Joshua, who then passed it to our other sages and prophets and scholars and teachers. And when someone was deemed worthy to join them as a new leader and teacher, they marked this transmission of authority by echoing Moses' act of smicha, of his laying his hands upon Joshua, endowing Joshua with authority, and also leaning upon Joshua, relying upon him to faithfully bring the teachings of the Torah into the future. And this process of transmission of the Torah from generation to generation continues today and continues at this special moment when 3 new rabbis are ordained to serve God, the Jewish people, and the world, and to teach Torah through their words and through their lives. The ordination process at AJR is a contemporary ceremony that echoes the ancient ceremonies I've just described. Each ordinee individually will appear before us together with the Beit Din, composed of 3 individuals they've personally chosen for this occasion. Each Beit Din has a somech, the head of the Beit Din, who will read the Shalshelet HaKabbalah in Hebrew. The Shalshelet HaKabbalah, creatively written for AJR many years ago, is based on the traditional description of our chain of tradition from Moses to Joshua to our sages through the centuries, including special and specific individuals chosen by our ordainees, whom they regard as part of their personal chain of transmission because of their teachings and their personal example. The 2 other members of the Beit Din will read an English rendering of the Shalshelet HaKabbalah and then a short excerpt from the actual smicha document. Following these readings, Dr. Horn-Krauser will speak about each ordinee, and then the ordinee's handpicked presenter will read or chant a special reshut that the Academy has commissioned, a poem inspired by the traditional liturgy for Simchat Torah, which calls forward each new rabbi toward God and toward their own calling as teachers of Torah. Next, the newly ordained rabbi will speak, followed by a short slideshow of that new rabbi as we transition to the next ordainee's personal ceremony. All in all, there will be 3 similar but separate presentations of our new rabbinic colleagues. Mazal tov to our ordainees, and mazal tov to all of us whose lives and learning are so enriched by them. Thank you for celebrating this holy moment with all of us at the Academy for Jewish Religion.
Shalom. I'm Cantalisa Klinger-Cantor, Dean of Admissions at AJR. In Judaism, we have a prayer recited to celebrate new and special occasions. Today, after more than a year of the COVID-19 pandemic, a year faced with uncertainties and often having to overcome adversity, it is remarkable how our ordainees found the fortitude to reach this momentous milestone in their lives. It is truly a time to thank and bless God. Please join me in the beautiful Shehechianu blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen. Thank you.
Moshe kibel Torah miSinai, Umsarah liYoshua, v'Yoshua lizkenim, u'zkenim linviim, unviim misaruha le'anshe knesset hagdola. Hem amru, amidu talmidim harbe, umitalmidehem letalmidotehem, lemarbitze haTorah shebechol dor vador. Vehem misaruha l'Rabbi Akiva, v'hu misarah l'Rabbi Meir, v'hu misarah l'Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, v'hu misarah l'Rabbi Nachman miBreslav, v'hu misarah l'Rabbi Shneur Zalman HaKohen Shechter, v'hu misarah l'Rabbi Avraham Yehoshua Heschel, v'hu misarah l'Rabbi Aaron Getzel ben Chaim Yehuda v'Etel Miriam, v'hu misarah l'Rabba Tamar Elad Applebaum, v'hi misarta l'Rabbi Yochanan ben Yosef v'Liba Leah, v'hu misarah l'Rabbi Yosef Tevya ben Moshe Reuven HaLevi u'Miriam, v'lanu, v'anachnu misarnuha lecha.
Moses received the Torah from God at Mount Sinai, and he passed it to Joshua, and Joshua passed it to the elders, and the elders passed it to the prophets, and the prophets passed it to the people of the great assembly. And they said, raise many disciples, and from those disciples to their disciples, to promulgate the Torah in each generation. And they passed it to Rabbi Akiva, and he passed it to Rabbi Meir, and he passed it to Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, and he passed it to Rabbi Nachman of Bretzlav, and he passed it to Rabbi Solomon Schechter, and he passed it to Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, and he passed it to Rabbi Gordon Tucker, and he passed it to Rabbi Tamar Elad Applebaum, and she passed it to Rabbi Jeffrey Hoffman, and he passed it to Rabbi Jeffrey Siegelman, and we pass it to you.
לעדות ולתעודה אנו חתומים מטה מעידים בזה שתלמידנו משה בן אהרון מרדכי ושנה איתה סיים בהצלחה את חוק הלימודים הדרוש. יהי רצון שימלא ימיו בצורכי הציבור באמונה, ויקוים בו הכתוב, יהי אדוני אלוהיו עמו ויעל. We, the undersigned, hereby attest that our devoted student, Mitchell Blank, has successfully completed all of his required studies. Accordingly, we bestow upon him the mantle of Torah and ordain him to serve as a rabbi and a teacher in Israel. May it be God's will that he will fill his days faithfully serving our community. In him may the verse be fulfilled. God be with you always.
Mitch, you are celebrated by your fellow students and teachers for your quiet warmth and humble generosity of spirit. We admire the depth of your capacity for love, love of learning, love of community, love of sacred text, love of Torah, and above all, love for your family. You have been described as both a mystic and down to earth, a rare combination that will serve you well as you continue to draw people closer to God. Your signature spiritual quiet contrasts dramatically with your devotion to your quintessentially vocal role as a Baal Koreh, a public reader of the Torah. You give fresh meaning to the words of the psalmist, Karov Adonai lechol korav. God is especially close to korav, to those who call upon the divine. How much more so the Baal Koreh, literally the master caller, one like you, whose voice brings the call of Torah to the entire community. L'chol asher yikra'uhu ve'emet, you share that call with exemplary sincerity and devotion.
Mitch Mazel Tov, let me read for you. I meant to read for you the reshut, but because you insisted, so I'm gonna recite it, say it with the one of my favorite melodies. מרשות האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אפתח פי בשירה, בהלל ובזמרה, על תלמידנו המופלג, משך שנה ושנה, היו בני כימים אחדים באחוותו אותה, רק חזק ואמץ להרבצת התורה. ולצאת ולעבור לפני העדה, לעמוד לשרת בשם הגבורה, להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה, מסמיכים כאבודו, להוראת הוראה, רב וחכם יקרא בקהילה קדושה, עמוד, 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 הרב משה, בן אהרון מרדכי, ושנה איתה. מורה הוראה וחוכמה הודיענו, משבעים פנים לתורה.
The day has finally arrived. Rabbinic ordination from my beloved school, AJR. This unplanned, later in life journey has been a long and winding road, all in preparation for the holy work ahead. Special recognition goes to my spouse, Rose, daughters Alana and Paula, and my parents, Adolph and Janet. We're so blessed to be all together witnessing this special day. You know, beginning a new path at 54, let alone one involving countless hours of classes, papers, and internships, was a bit unexpected for my family. Thank you for your loving support. Kohelet 1:15 says, a twisted thing cannot be made straight. The pshat is that once things are awry, they can never be made whole. My life experience teaches the opposite. Life will go awry, but we can still make meaning and purpose by a process of acceptance, empathy, and finally, action. We may indeed not emerge whole, but we can emerge more integrated and more at peace with our lives. My Rebbe Gordon Tucker has taught it's the struggle that's holy. As a rabbi, I'll witness the struggles and, God willing, help guide people to places of meaning and purpose amongst life's inevitable challenges. Witnessing and guiding are framed through Torah, our millennia-old accumulated wisdom. Here's my mission: to infuse congregants and students with a sense of the transcendent by elucidating modern meaning in ancient Jewish texts, philosophies, and traditions, revealing them all to be authentically relevant. Fittingly, one last special recognition to Rabbi Jeff Hoffman, a friend, study partner, teacher, and mentor. You single-handedly both bolstered me and weaseled me into thinking I could be rabbinic material, and not just a guy who loves learning. You were right. I'm forever in your debt. Thank you all very much.
Moshe kibel Torah miSinai. U'mesara leYehoshua. LeYehoshua leZkenim. U'Zkenim leNeviim. U'Neviim mesaruha l'Anshe Knesset Hagedolah. Hem amru. Hamidu talmidim harbe. Umi talmidehem letalmidotehem. L'maritzei haTorah b'chol dor vador. Vehem misaruha lehilel hazaken. V'hu misara l'Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. V'hu misara l'Rabbi Shlomo ben Yitzhak. V'hu misara l'Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon. V'hu misara l'Rabbi Yosef ben Ephraim Karo. Rabbi Moshe ben Yisrael Israelis. Vehem Mesaruha l'Rabbi Abraham Yehoshua Heschel. V'hu Mesara l'Rabbi Yitzhak Klein. V'hu Mesara l'Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz. V'hu Mesara l'Rabbi David Lieber. V'hu Mesara l'Rabbi Yitzhak Tzvi Sachs V'lanu. V'anachnu Mesaruha l'cha.
Moses received the Torah from God at Mount Sinai, and he passed it to Joshua, and Joshua passed it to the elders, and the elders passed it to the prophets, and the prophets passed it to the people of the great assembly. And they said, raise many disciples, and from those disciples to their disciples, to promulgate the Torah for each generation. And they passed it to Hillel Hazaken, and he passed it to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, and he passed it to Rashi, Rabbi Shlomo ben Yitzchak, and he passed it to Rambam, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, and he passed it to Rabbis Yosef ben Ephraim Karo and Moshe Isserlis, and they passed it to Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, and he passed it to Rabbi Isaac Klein, and he passed it to Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz, and he passed it to Rabbi David Lieber, and he passed it to Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, and we pass it to you.
לעדות ולתעודה, אנו חתמים מטה מעידים בזה שתלמידנו ירמיהו בן אהרון ולאה סיים בהצלחה את חוק הלימודים הדרוש. יהי רצון שימלא ימיו בצורכי הציבור באמונה, ויקוים בו הכתוב, Yehi Hashem Eloav imo vaya'al. We, the undersigned, hereby attest that our devoted student, Jeremy Lipton, successfully completed all required studies. Accordingly, we bestow upon him the mantle of Torah and ordain him to serve as rabbi and teacher in Israel. May it be God's will that he fill his days faithfully serving the community. In him may the verse be fulfilled. God be with you always.
Jeremy, you came to the Academy already a most accomplished Jewish professional. You are a skilled educator and a much admired colleague and mentor in the Cantors Assembly. Nevertheless, at the Academy, you refuse to rest on your laurels. You have been a serious student of sacred text, Hebrew language, and Jewish thought, even as you have eagerly brought your musical and cantorial gifts to our community. Among your many personal gifts is the ability to perceive needs in individuals and institutions and generously to address them. You have a pastoral instinct well suited to the dual paths of religious leadership that you will now pursue as both cantor and rabbi. You demonstrate a warm and giving nature, unflappable even in the presence of those who do not necessarily share those qualities. You are skilled at sincerely perceiving others in the best possible light. Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav famously taught, "Da lecha shechol ro'eh v'ro'eh yesh lo nigun miyuchad mishelo." Know this well, every single shepherd has their own personal nigun, their own personal melody. As rabbi and cantor, you are ro'eh v'ro'eh, pursuing a dual role as shepherd to our people. Your special melody will be one that touches people's hearts, minds, and souls.
Jeremy Mizaltov. מרשות הגדול הגיבור והנורא אפתח פי בשירה בהלל וזמרה על תלמידינו המופלג במשך שנה ושנה היו בעיניו כימים אחדים באהבתו אותה. רב חזק ואמץ לבצע את התורה ולצאת ולבוא לפני העדה. לעמוד לשרת בשם הגבורה. להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה. מסמיכים כבודו להוראת תורה, רב וחכם יקרא בקהילה קדושה. לי 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 עמוד עמוד עמוד. הרב ירמיהו בן אהרון ולאה מורה הוראה, וחוכמה הודיענו מ70 פנים לתורה. In the name of God, mighty, great, and awesome, let us raise our voices to sing in celebration of our student who has distinguished himself these many years, though the time passed as mere days because of our love for him. Now persevere confidently to teach Torah, to provide leadership to the Jewish community, to stand up for what is right, to serve God, to bear loving witness to the unity of God. We ordain you to spread God's word, as rabbi and counselor to our holy congregation. Arise, 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 Rabbi Jeremy Lipton, ordained to teach, and instruct us in the wisdom of the 70 faces of the Torah. Zal tov.
Of course, the sounding of the shofar is most often associated with Yamim Noraim, the high holidays. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, Zichrono Livracha, described hearing the shofar's ancient sounds as a musical experience that simply cannot be put into words. The shofar, he said, is the wordless cry of the heart of a religion of words. Judaism is a profoundly verbal culture, yet there is a time for emotions that lie too deep for words. The sound of the shofar breaks through the shell of the self-justifying mind and touches us at the most primal level of our being. The Tanakh teaches us that the shofar was employed for a variety of compelling reasons: to gather the people together, to warn of approaching danger, to announce the arrival of the Yuval, the Jubilee year, as a battle cry in war, and as an accompaniment to songs of praise. However, perhaps most significantly, we were enveloped in the shofar's clarion sound during Revelation at Sinai to affirm and proclaim the receiving of Torah. It's this last biblical context that I want to briefly focus upon today as I receive rabbinic smicha. The four unique shofar blasts that we just heard might represent four aspects of my personal journey toward the rabbinate. The first, the Tekiyah, recalls a spiritual awakening, an opening proclamation that set the stage for what was to come. The longing cries of the shfarim represent my internal questioning, as well as my search for discernment in receiving the knowledge, experiences, and resources that followed. The emphatic, repeated, and insistent notes of the Truah speak to the multiplicity of voices that have guided me along the way, together and sequential, and yet each one unique in its nuance, beauty, and shape. And finally, the Tekiyah Gedolah serves both as a recapitulation and as an affirmation of all of the previous experiences and interactions, while also reminding me of the continuous opportunities for revelation, for receiving Torah that will propel me forward. I am extremely grateful to each of you who has accompanied me along this rabbinic journey, most specifically my family, for your care and support in allowing me to both receive the music and to follow the sound of my inner voice. Toda Rabbah. Thank you.
Moshe kibel Torah miSinai u'mesara liYehoshua. V'Yehoshua l'zikenim, v'zikenim l'nevi'im, l'nevi'im mesaru al anshe knesset hagadolah. Hem amru ha'amidu talmidim harbeh, u'mitalmidehem letalmidotehem, lemarbitzei haTorah shebechol dor vador. Vehem mesaruha l'Rabbi Yosef Chaim ben harav Michael v'Sara Rivka. Vehu mesara l'Rabbi Ezra Michael Simcha ben harav Eliezer Aryeh Halevi Carmel. Vehu mesara l'Rabbi Ze'ev ben Aryeh Lev v'Ita. Vehu mesara l'Rabbi Avraham ben Zalman u'Dvorah. Vehu mesara l'Rabbi Aryeh Chaim ben Avraham v'Shemel. Vehu mesara l'Rabbi Yochanan ben Yosef v'Liba Leah. Vehu mesara l'Rabbi Yosef Tuvia ben Moshe Reuven Halevi u'Miriam. Uhu mesara l'Rabbi Reuven Yaakov ben Chanoch HaKohen v'Yehudit. Vehu mesara l'Rabbi Matityahu Tzviel ben Reuven u'Fluma. Vehu mesara l'Rabbi Aharon Shalom ben Harav Abraham ve'Atalia ve'lanu ve'anachnu mesarnuha lach.
Moses received the Torah from God at Mount Sinai, and he passed it to Joshua. And Joshua passed it to the elders, and the elders passed it to the prophets, and the prophets passed it to the people of the great assembly. And they said, raise many disciples, and from those disciples to their disciples, to promulgate the Torah for each generation. And they passed it to Rabbi Joseph Wise, Zichrono Livracha, and he passed it to Rabbi Ezra Finkelstein, and he passed it to Rabbi William LeBeau, and he passed it to Rabbi Alan Silverstein, and he passed it to Rabbi Aryeh Meyer, and he passed it to Rabbi Jeffrey Hoffman, passed it to Rabbi Jeffrey Siegelman, and he passed it to Rabbi Robert Scheinberg, and he passed it to Rabbi Matthew Goldstone, and he passed it to Rabbi Ari Lucas, and we pass it now to you, Rabbi Marjorie Belzer Wise. May God be with you.
לעדות ולתודה אנו חתומים מטה, מעידים בזה שתלמידתנו מלכה בת קטריאל מיכל ובלה סיימה בהצלחה את חוק הלימודים הדרוש. יהי רצון שתמלא ימיה בצורכי הציבור באמונה, ויקוים בה הכתוב, יהי השם אלוהיו עמו ויעל. We, the undersigned, hereby attest that our devoted student, Marge Wise, successfully completed all required studies. Accordingly, we bestow upon her the mantle of Torah and ordain her to serve as rabbi and teacher in Israel. May it be God's will that she fill her days faithfully serving the community. In her may the verse be fulfilled. God be with you always.
Marge, you embody a Yiddish bracha that was often cited by my own grandmother. Havchen by Gat und bei Leiten. You should find grace and favor before both God and the people in your life. You are a true and valued friend to so many of your fellow students here at AJR who are deeply grateful for the opportunity to study with you, to learn from you, and who admire your passion for learning and teaching. You have a giving heart and a giving spirit. You have devoted yourself to the Jewish community at every stage of your life. You are now well prepared to take on new and yet more consequential expressions of leadership and responsibility as a rabbi. Like Jacob, in his most transformative moment, you have deftly grappled both to find ever more powerful ways to connect with God and to secure your authentic place in the chain of Jewish tradition. Like Jacob, the result of that inner wrestling has been a bracha, a blessing of your own.
Marge? No? Marge, I'm so delighted to be able to recite this reshut for you. You are certainly Acharon Chaviv, and we're very happy and delighted that you've reached this day. Mereshut ha'el hagadol hagibor v'hanora, eftach pi b'shira b'halel u'v'zimra. Al tamidatenu hamufleget meshech shana v'shana, hayu ve'eneha kayamim achadim be'avata ota. רק חזקי ואמצי להרבצת התורה, ולצאת ולבוא לפני העדה, לעמוד לשרת בשם הגבורה, להודות לך וליחדך באהבה. מסמיכים כבודה להוראת הוראה, רב וחכמה תקרא בקהילה קדושה. עמדי הרב, מלכה בת קטריאל מיכל ובלה מורה הוראה, בחוכמה הודיענו משיבים פנים לתורה. In the name of God, mighty, great, and awesome, let us raise our voices to sing in celebration of our student who has distinguished herself these many years through the time past as mere days because of our love for her. Now persevere confidently to teach Torah, to provide leadership to the Jewish community, to stand up for what is right, to serve God, to bear loving witness to the unity of God. We ordain you to spread God's word as rabbi and counselor to our holy congregation. Arise, 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 Rabbi Marjorie Wise, ordained to teach and instruct us in the wisdom of the 70 faces of Torah. Mazal Tov, Marge.
Thank you so much. Shalom, and thank you to my presenter, Rabbi Aryeh Meir, and to my Beit Din, Rabbis Matthew Goldstone, Ezra Finkelstein, and Jeff Hoffman, and to Dr. Ora Horn-Krauser, Rabbi Jill Hammer, Cantors Michael Casper and Lisa Klinger-Cantor, and to all my incredible teachers, to the entire staff and the Board of Trustees of AJR. People often avoid making decisions out of fear of making a mistake. Actually, the failure to make decisions is one of life's biggest mistakes. These words of Rabbi Noah Weinberg speak to my decision to become a rabbi. There are two words which are the reason. They are Pinsel Yid, the words that refer to the Jewish spark which is in every one of us. My passion for being a rabbi is a product of my wanting to help ignite that spark in others as it was lit for me. Hakarat HaTov, showing gratitude, is especially important to me. It is with awe and reverence that I thank the Ribbono Shel Olam for the bounty with which he has blessed me. One of my favorite prayers expressing thanksgiving to God begins with the words, Modim Anachnu Lach. Rav Yitzchak Hutner says that the literal translation of Modim Anachnu Lach is not we thank you. Rather, it is we admit to you. Explaining that the reason that these two words are one and identical in Hebrew is because a person's ability to give thanks to God or to another human being is based on his ability to admit that he is incomplete and that he needs the favors and kindnesses of someone else. This teaching brings home to me our connectedness to God and to each other, as well as the importance of humility. I want to thank all the rabbis and cantors in my life who teach and inspire me daily, as well as my extended family and my friends for sharing this day with me. I'm remembering with great sadness my dear friend Yvette Catlin, Yehi Zichra Baruch, whose passing has left a huge void. Yvette and I shared our hopes and our yearnings, our plans for our rabbinates, our late night chevruta, our sermons. Yvette will always be a part of my rabbinate and of my life. I wish that my parents of blessed memory, who always cheered me on, had lived to celebrate this joyous day with me. And I wish that my husband, Zichrono Livracha, who opened up for me the well springs of Torah and mitzvot, had lived to be here. Acharon, Acharon Chaviv, very dear, yes, but never last in my heart, is my cherished family, to Sarah and Yossi, Meira, Akiva, Shifra, and Nama, and to Josh and Jen, Avi, Yomi, Tani, and Toby. You are precious blessings to me. I love you all so much. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Thank you all, and God bless.
We conclude this part of the ordination ceremony itself with one of the most ancient of Jewish blessings, the biblical Birkat Kohanim, or priestly blessing. Through it, we ask that God bless and protect these three new rabbis, and most importantly, grant to them the greatest blessing, the blessing of peace. The source of being bless you and guard you. The source of becoming shine upon you and be gracious to you.
Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Shalom, shalom, v'yasem lecha shalom. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Shalom, shalom, v'yasem lecha shalom, 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 v'yasem lecha shalom.
The one who is, turn to you and grant you peace.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Mazal Tov to our new ordinees, and Mazal Tov to our graduates and to our honorees. Thank you to everyone who worked so hard to make today possible. Special thanks to those you haven't seen but have made this work, Rabbi David Cavill, Ali Skamenges, and Kira Moore, who have been taking care of the technological aspects of the program. Special thanks to Linda Rips, who oversaw the journal. We are grateful to all of you for your attention to detail. We have opened the chat. Please use this time to share your greetings with the ordinees, the graduates, and the honorees. We know they'll love hearing from you. And I want to end with Tzeitchem l'shalom uvoachem l'shalom. Go in peace and return in peace. For those of you who are just learning about AJR, we look forward to your return and get to know us better. For our beloved ordinees, go in peace and strength. We will miss you, and we look forward to your return as alumni and colleagues. Be well, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy. Shalom.